So guys, let's do this episode of the pet pairing series a little bit more in like a chatty get ready with me style, featuring also my face makeup, because actually someone mentioned in the comments in my previous video that they would really like to see how I do my face makeup. I don't usually include that because I think it's really boring. I don't really do anything like super special, I just switch up the products. But hey, let's do it together today because I am a little bit overexcited and I need to like get my excitement out in some way, so I'm just going to be chatting with you. The reason I'm excited is that my new bike is arriving in about an hour and I'm literally here counting down the minutes until it arrives. I'm going to include like a little video clip of the bike when it arrives, so hopefully you will be able to see that as well and everything went smooth and the bike fit well. But anyway, I've already primed my eyelids and I've done my eyebrows, and I was just about to put on my Glow Lust from Auric. You guys know this is like a SOP now. We cannot really start the day without the Glow Lust from Auric. It has definitely become a staple for me, this product. That is no joke. I highly recommend it. I'm going to use it every single day until it's finished, and then if it's still available, I am going to repurchase it. I'm going to take my Bendy Avocado Concealer from HelloFresh. It says Hello Fab on the tube. I have no idea what I'm talking about, you guys. I'm sorry, I'm just too excited. I'm grabbing the shade 2, which is the shade Light. I'm kind of switching up between my two concealers currently, or the ones that I'm using a bit more consistently lately, and those are the First Aid Beauty one and the one from Clarins, and the one from Clarins is on, I think it's Last Legs. For foundation, I'm going to be taking my Pat McGrath Sublime Perfection foundation and just apply a relatively thin layer of that. It's a very thin foundation in terms of its consistency, so it's not a very full coverage foundation, but I don't like to apply it with a heavy hand because I feel like it can get quite streaky if you apply it with a very heavy hand. And I just generally don't like to apply my foundations with a very heavy hand. So, light coverage it is. Have I told you guys how much I hate, absolutely despise reading the news? I've never liked reading the news, and I have to say, pre-pandemic I was doing really well not reading the news. I started reading the news more often after the pandemic started, because obviously I wanted to be slightly more informed, but my feelings about news outlets have not changed one bit. I just think, I don't know what has happened to the news, but once upon a time, or at least the way that I remember it, like news outlets and like news journalists were serious people. They would report like serious issues and actual news, whereas with the invasion of the internet, I feel like news have taken a direction where news outlets are these twisted, fucked up like sources of equal amounts of information and misinformation. Like, they spread some information on you, they also spread a ton of misinformation on you, and they're like, you pick which one you want to believe. Which I find exceptionally annoying, because the reason people read the news is that they want to be informed. They don't want to be informed and misinformed and have to make the choice between the two. And just to put it in context, why am I rambling about this? So the latest reason that I got really irritated at the news, because once again news were stirring up the pot instead of helping. Like, let's talk about that AstraZeneca vaccine that everyone has like put on hold of at the moment, because it's just so annoying to me. I'm going to put a little bit of bronzer on my face, and I think I'm going to take my Fenty Beauty one. I also did this one yesterday, but I'm just into it right now. So this is the shade Honey Glaze, in case anyone was interested, and I'm still going to use my little Fupa brush here from Koyudo. I really like this brush. So as you guys know, a large number of countries, almost all of the EU actually, have currently put the AstraZeneca vaccine on hold because there have been reports of associations between that vaccine and thrombosis, so blood clots forming. And I've been really irritated at the news since the beginning of the pandemic, because all they do is report numbers without any context, which just panics people. Like my mom, for instance, in the beginning of the pandemic used to just send me like daily reports of numbers of people who have died, and you know, focusing on all of these like fluctuating numbers without putting any of these numbers into context and what they mean. I'm also going to take actually my Fenty Beauty Fuego Flush Cream Blusher, which I don't know why, but I don't really use this thing a lot. I thought that I would be like super into it, but actually since I bought it I like frequently forget about it, and I don't really know why, because I do like it a lot. So let's just go for that today. So like I said, the AstraZeneca vaccine was, and I don't want to say that it was causatively linked to thrombosis, because that is the exact point that I want to make, that it has not been. But since the beginning, like I said, the news outlets like to focus on numbers, and they really like to like splash on their front pages all the exceptions. Like one young person with unreported pre-existing conditions dies of COVID, and all of a sudden the news reports that young people have started dying from COVID. Like shit like this, you know. Reporting exceptions without talking about all the other large numbers, and just focusing on that and installing panic in people. Like, because regular people don't need to concern themselves with numbers and what numbers mean and how to do statistics and how to compare groups. Also, there is a guy in front of my window who's like cleaning up the front yard of our neighbor, and he's making a crap ton of noise, and I really hope you can't hear him much. Now, let's do a little throwback here, and I'm going to grab a product that I still like, I just don't grab for a lot. This is Champagne Pop from Becca. I still like this highlighter. I mean, it's nothing super special, but I do still like the undertones of it and how it looks on my skin. And I do think Becca highlighters are among the most flattering ones, like the powder highlighters, because they have such a smooth formula. Anyway, that was like a little side note there. But yeah, so ever since the beginning I've been annoyed, but especially now with the vaccines, it's getting to the point where I'm like, okay, do you really want this pandemic to end, or are you reveling in the panic that you are seeding into people's minds? Because it seems to me, guys, like it's the latter. I'm going to just put the tiniest bit of Fix Plus and run that here onto my cheekbones. I do really like to set my highlighter like that. I think it becomes smoother and like really beautiful and shiny. And the lipstick I'm going to go for today is the shade Wellis and Tweed, which is a beautiful peach nude from H&M, by the way. I mentioned in my last video as well, I'm really going through like an H&M cream lipstick phase, because I have not been able to put them down for over a week now. So, like I said, today we're going to be pairing the beautiful Subversive palette and the gorgeous Midnight Sun. So these are the two palettes that we're going to be using today, and the look I want to go for is like an orange lime green look. So I'm going to incorporate the shade Gigabyte, which is like probably my favorite in the Subversive palette, together with a bunch of shades from the Midnight Sun palette. So we're going to start with the Midnight Sun palette. I am going to take a little blending brush and going to go into this shade here, which is a beautiful matte camel brown. So like I was saying, they like to report the exceptions rather than the rule, and once again with that AstraZeneca vaccine, all that they have done is report a couple of exceptions, make everyone panic, and what I find even more like flabbergasting, I'm really like, I'm speechless, is that governments that are supposed to be, you know, filled with people who have enough brains or have enough, you know, connections to people with brains, who should know better and who should be like, no, we're not stopping with the vaccinations with the AstraZeneca vaccine, it's perfectly safe. It's been tested, there has not been found a link to thrombosis. However, what governments are doing instead are, I don't know, like falling for that kind of populistic news, or, you know, making sure they get re-elected and following whatever the peoples want. And but like, the peoples are not informed, okay? They're not specialists in immunology or making of vaccines or how one tests vaccines. So I feel like people in government organizations should have known better. It's so important that we proceed with vaccinating instead of stalling even more. So I'm just really irritated at this news, because the thing is that when you're reporting that there is an increased number of thrombosis occurring amongst people who have been vaccinated, you need to compare that with something. You cannot just say 10 people who were vaccinated out of the 50 got thrombosis and it's due to the vaccine. No, you have to compare that to a group of people who have not been vaccinated to see whether the incidence of thrombosis in the placebo group, or like the control non-treated group, is the same as your treated group. Because if it is, then there is no difference. There is no significant difference. There is no reason to believe that thrombosis occurs more often in people who have been vaccinated, because people are going to continue suffering from whatever underlying conditions they have. Thrombosis, heart conditions, they're going to continue getting cancer. So you cannot, people are going to continue getting cancer throughout the next 10 years. You cannot go in 5 years and say the COVID vaccine from whichever brand caused an increased incidence of cancer, unless you have compared that to a control group and you can make that kind of conclusion. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's trying to even make sense of that. Instead, they have put that vaccine on hold. So that's all I wanted to say about the news and that vaccine, because it's been mind-boggling to me, and every day I go to read the news I get more and more irritated, because at first I was getting irritated that they were even reporting it and putting it and phrasing it that way. And yesterday or a few days ago, I read that the Netherlands has suspended the AstraZeneca vaccine for a couple of weeks because of the link to thrombosis. I'm going to take this shade, by the way, and apply it just very, very lightly in the very outer corner of my eye, a bit as a liner shape. And then we'll continue applying the rest of the shades. So yeah, that's the reason I don't read the news, and I get particularly irritated at the way news are presented. Because if you read the articles, somewhere deeply hidden in there, you will see the piece of information about, yeah, but if you look at control groups, the incidence of thrombosis isn't really higher. But that gets buried into the rest of the information, and it just puts people in panic, and I completely get that. Now I'm going to grab my little Pixie epoxy glitter glue here, and we're going to start applying the lid shades, and I'm really, really curious how it's going to turn out, because in my head it looks really nice, but in reality, I don't know. Going to apply that all over the moving lid, and now I'm going to grab the Subversive palette, and I'm going to take Gigabyte and apply that onto the outer part of my lid, so all the way here, but only halfway through, not all over the lid, because I want to put another shade next to that, and actually just a tiny bit over that dark brown. We can intensify the dark brown again later, but for now we are just packing on that beautiful Gigabyte shade. Okay, and now for the fun and experimental part, we're going to go back into the Midnight Sun palette and take this gorgeous shade here. This is one of the toppers. It's a beautiful, coppery orange. I'm going to take this shade also on my finger and apply it onto the inner part of the lid. Now I'm going to take this small shader brush from Sonia G and actually just go in with the orange shade from Midnight Sun deeper into my inner corners where I can't really reach with my thick little fingers. And I think for my inner corner highlight, I actually want to stick with something that's a little bit more golden. So I'm going to take the highlighter trio, the Skin Fetish highlighter trio, and go into this shade and use that as an inner corner highlight. For my lower lash line, I'm going to once again grab the Midnight Sun palette and go into the olive green shade, and that's going to go on the outer part of my lower lash line. And next to that I'm going to pop a little bit of Gigabyte again. Okay, you guys, the guy in front of my window is back with a vengeance, so we have to wrap this video up really quickly. In summation, I am hoping that governments are going to come back to sense and we're just going to proceed with vaccination as needed. Unfortunately, I don't see the day anytime soon that news are going to stop spreading panic and misinformation along with the droplets of information they provide in their articles. So I think we're just going to have to become more clever citizens, be very informed, and be very critical of what the news actually means. But I think it's time for me to stop rambling about that subject. I'm very curious what you think about it. What do you think about the look? I actually really like how the look turned out. I think these two shades play really beautifully together, especially if you mix them up towards the center, because they give this beautiful, like almost like pink golden hue. Absolutely beautiful. I am now going to proceed with counting down the minutes until my new bike arrives. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!